It's the Young Turks. I need you to stand up. I need you to sit down. I need you to get excited. I need you to calm down. Let's have some fun. Cenk Uygur, Anna Kasparian, Casper the Friendly Host. Okay, AK-47, she's back. Do I have it somewhere? No, I don't, so I'll just play this.
You're insane.
The last episode of Old School, I had Ben try to guess what that said.
Oh, I heard it, yes.
Oh, yeah, because if you don't know, if you didn't watch the Sacha Baron Cohen episode or our discussion of it, you have no idea what this means. I will translate for you. My mouth is big enough for two of these. That was a right-winger with a dildo in his mouth trying to fend off a terrorist. Yalla, let's go. Colonel Iran Murad strikes again. Speaking of which, tonight, finally in the postgame, the downside of Sacha Baron Cohen. And what he did to a right-winger in his last episode was so debasing and humiliating that I started to feel bad for the guy. And so,
can you tell me who the right winger is? Is this a public figure or a private citizen?
No, he in between. The local yokel right wing group.
Oh,
okay.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about it in the postgame. tyt.com/join to join us in the postgame. Lots of big stories today, including the Andrew Gillum race, Bernie versus Trump. That's what's happening in Florida. That's a little microcosm of there. And obviously, it has immediately begun with racism. We, believe it or not, have good news out of California. Any good news in politics is amazing. And finally, in terms of one of the things we're going to do, Donald Trump has been declared unconstitutional. Now, it's true. Now, one of the people that defeated Donald Trump is often on the Young Turks. Damn. I wish it was me, man. I wish it was me. But I'm super proud of him. We will explain. And maybe in the postgame also why J.R. Jackson got blocked on Twitter by Donna Brazil.
JR got blocked by Donna Brazil?
JR got blocked. Okay, sorry.
Damn,
Jay. Okay. Did I mention tyt.com/join? That you become a member, you get all of our shows, including the postgame? All right, let's have fun.
All right. We start off with a doozy. Bad decision by Andrew Cuomo in New York. Governor Andrew Cuomo has decided to end an investigation into how the district attorney in New York handled a case of sexual assault that was alleged against Harvey Weinstein. Now, when the whole Harvey Weinstein story broke, there was a recording made by an Italian model where it appeared that Harvey Weinstein admitted to sexually assaulting her. That evidence was then presented to District Attorney Cyrus Vance Jr. in New York, and he decided not to press any charges or prosecute Harvey Weinstein.
Yes.
Okay. So that became a bit of a scandal. And then you look into some of the funding that this district attorney's office had received, and they had received $10,000 in donations from the law firm representing Harvey Weinstein.
Yes.
So at that point, Governor Andrew Cuomo comes in and says, this is unacceptable. We need to launch an investigation into the DA's office to see what the hell is going on.
We got to figure out what the hell is going on, okay?
He has since reversed that decision.
So there are layers of politics and corruption in this story. So I believe that Cuomo's decision was political in a couple of different ways, but the most important part of this story is the underlying fundamental part is the corruption of our entire system, right? But the most important political part is what this is going to do to Cuomo, because it looks real bad. If Cynthia Nixon pressed on this open wound, there's some chance that, look, sometimes one issue wins you a whole election. That people get so mad about this that it could cost them. And why did Cuomo do it? Because he can't help himself. So let's give you details and I will explain the different layers.
Okay, so just to repeat myself and make sure that we're clear, the DA's office, Cyrus Vance Jr., the district attorney, had received $10,000 in donations from the law firm representing Harvey Weinstein. There was never any prosecution, okay?
Yeah, and to be clear, he got it a couple months after he declined to prosecute. So I don't know what's worse or better, if you get it ahead of time or afterwards, and if it includes a wink or a nod.
So Andrew Cuomo says we need to investigate this and figure out why the DA decided not to prosecute Harvey Weinstein. But news developed indicating that no, the governor has decided to completely suspend this investigation, and people were wondering why. Now, David Sirota dug into this story and has a possible reason why. And he writes in capitalandmain.com, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo has halted an investigation into the handling of the Weinstein case, just as Bowie's law firm gave Cuomo's campaign $25,000.
So Boies is Weinstein's lawyer, or was Weinstein's lawyer until very recently. So he's going around handing out checks to all the people who might prosecute Weinstein. What a nice coincidence for Weinstein. And it turns out they all decide that they are going to drop investigations left and right. This is the third time we're clarifying. Cuomo did not drop an investigation of Weinstein. He dropped an investigation of the prosecutor who would not prosecute Weinstein.
Exactly.
So, but charges and investigations are being dropped left and right as checks are being dropped left and right.
So, and to be extra clear, the investigations into Harvey Weinstein continue. So this is not about Harvey Weinstein anymore. This is about investigating the district attorney and the decision that was made to not initially investigate Harvey Weinstein or prosecute him after these allegations had come forward. Cuomo in March called for the New York Attorney General's office to investigate the handling of the case, which revolved around accusations that Weinstein groped an Italian model. So at the time, Cuomo said, quote, "It is critical not only that these cases are given the utmost attention, but also that there is public confidence in the handling of these cases. Unless, of course, I get $25,000 in my re-election campaign, then all of a sudden the public's trust isn't as important." I added that last part, obviously.
All right, let me go to graphic 5 here, because this is in a lot of ways the most important part of the story, because it gives you the overall picture. In all, Boies and his law firm have given Cuomo's gubernatorial campaigns more than $245,000 since 2009. So let me give you Cuomo's excuse, and then I'll break down what I think actually happened. Cuomo says, "Oh no, it's since they're prosecuting now. I didn't want to investigate the prosecutor, because then the defense attorney could use some of the evidence we uncovered maybe to help Weinstein." Now you could say, hey, you know what? Maybe that's a legitimate point as to why they might want to suspend the investigation. But you knew that before. So why now decide to drop the investigation of the prosecutor? Okay, so let's now rewind and tell you what I think are the real motivations here. So Cyrus Vance does not prosecute, he gets a $10,000 check against Weinstein.
That's all it took.
Yeah, and until it blows up, and so he's embarrassed because he's got caught with his hand in the cookie jar, and then decides to prosecute, otherwise his career is ruined, okay? Because Weinstein's such an obvious monster, and now everyone knows it. Before, Cyrus Vance knew it because he had all the evidence. He just chose not to pursue it. So look at what's wrong with the system. We allow campaign contributions to prosecutors?
Yeah.
Gee, I wonder if that's a system that's gonna lead to corruption. Of course the rich will give money to prosecutors not to get prosecuted. I mean, let's just acknowledge how insane that is.
It's been acknowledged.
Yeah, wolf-pac.com. If you're not fighting to get money out of politics, well, with these oligarchs gonna rule us? I mean, the system is defined by corruption. You don't want to talk about rigged. It's rigged on behalf of the rich by definition. Okay, of course you shouldn't be allowed to give money to a prosecutor. That's insanity, even if it's for his campaign. So now go to Cuomo. Cuomo decides that he's going to investigate Cyrus Vance Jr. Is that because Cuomo is so deeply ethical and he was moved by the fact that Vance wouldn't prosecute? No, they're politicians in the same state and the same party. So, hey, this is a good way to dig my opponent and make sure he doesn't get up, okay? If you're not aware of New York politics history, and there's no reason you should be, let me just fill you in real quick. Cuomo had started another investigation earlier on an unrelated topic, and when the investigation about ethics turned to him, and it turned out he had done some seriously unethical things, he immediately ended the investigation, said, oh, we're done here. Wait, but they didn't give a report and they were investigating you. It's a Trump-like move. He's like, no, we're done with that. And now we're going crazy over Trump as we should, considering firing Mueller. In essence, Cuomo fired his own Mueller, okay? And so now he's like, oh, well, look at, I have found ethical problems. I will now investigate this other guy who might one day be a challenger to me, okay? Now, Boyce comes in and goes, hey, remember all that money I gave you? What do you think I gave it for? And plus I have another $25,000 check for you, okay? So the governor can decide whether they're gonna do investigations of the prosecutors, the district attorney, and so many other monumentally important decisions. And we allow people to bribe them. Well, Boyce can say, and Boyce, look, he's a lawyer, he represents his clients. I get it, and he's a progressive and he's a good guy, and maybe he likes Cuomo, maybe he gave it because he just loves Cuomo. I don't care. What I care about is a system that says, here's $250,000, and then maybe you do what I tell you to do, maybe you don't. Well, golly gee, I guess we'll never know.
So, okay, so the vast majority of that money was previously given to Cuomo by the law firm where Boyce is a partner, right? The additional $25,000 was the new money that was given to Cuomo after he had launched this investigation against the prosecutors. So then he ends up suspending this investigation. And so, yes, look, we can't definitively say that that $25,000 was the factor that led to his decision, right? I speculate that it was. I have reason to believe that it was. And if it's proven that that was the reason why he did it, this could cost him his political career, right? I mean, if Cynthia Nixon plays this the way that we hope she plays it, right? Think about it. He launched this investigation, gets that's all it took, $25,000 to investigate prosecutors, to end the investigation of prosecutors. Like, that's all it took. $25,000 is not a lot of money.
Yeah, no, politicians can be bought pretty cheap. It's actually a great investment. So why is this in Capitol in Maine? David Sorrell doing a fantastic job. Why isn't it a headline in New York Times? He's the New York governor. Don't you think it's a little bit relevant? Well, it's because the mainstream media is actually 100% used to corruption. And they view it to be standard course. Like, well, of course, I mean, of course you give $250,000 to Cuomo and he does exactly what you tell him to, but that's a coincidence, guys. That's a coincidence. So now look, the 245 makes a difference even before you get to the 25 because there's a history of corruption here. We give you money, you do what we tell you. Now they had this comical statement that they put out. A spokesperson for the law firm said neither Mr. Boyce nor anyone from his firm ever discussed Harvey Weinstein or Mr. Vance with Mr. Cuomo or anyone from his office at any time. Of course, you think Boyce, who's one of the best lawyers in the country, is gonna be enough of a schmuck to say, now remember, Andrew, this is $25,000 check to buy you. Make sure you drop the investigation. You think Cuomo doesn't know he's Weinstein's lawyer? Okay, so, and again, whether you think this particular check is connected to this particular decision is not nearly as important as how deeply corrupt the system is, where you can just buy politicians, buy prosecutors, and then we have no idea why you did it and why he took the actions that he did. Do you guys trust that Cuomo did it for purely ethical, real, ideological, principled reasons? Well, how could you possibly trust that? Even if Cuomo's a great guy, how could you trust that? He got bribed, because he gets systematically bribed, by the way, yes, like all other politicians do. But the New York Times and everyone else is like, oh, well, well, hey, another coincidence. Okay, no big deal, let's just move on here. But look, I agree with Anna. People are sick of it. They're absolutely sick of it. And Weinstein is a poster child for the rich and the powerful getting away with things that they should have no business getting away with, and that you know you wouldn't get anywhere near getting away with, and nor should you. But he might, and you know it. And he had, and he did for all those years. Now, New York Times before also covered for Weinstein when they mainly sold ads, and that's how they got their revenue. And Weinstein's companies were huge advertisers with the New York Times. Now they mainly work on a subscription model. All of a sudden they run the Weinstein story. Now, but Cuomo, look, there is a little bit of truth to what the right wing says about the media. It's not that they're liberal, it's not anywhere close to that, right? But do they know the Democratic politicians and give them more of a break? It's that not progressives, but establishment Democrats? A little bit, yeah. Because if Trump had done this, they'd be all over him. Cuomo does it, just keeps on taking bribe after bribe after bribe. I grant you it's legal, but it's brazen in Cuomo's case. He'll take money from the real estate industry and then turn around and give giant tax breaks to the real estate industry in New York. Oh, I am helping to stimulate the economy. I've seen this game before.
It's happening in LA as well.
Yeah, and I see it with the Republicans, I see it with Democrats. The only people who can't see it, apparently, are the rest of the media who've been trained to accept corruption as a status quo and not to challenge it. So not only do I challenge Cuomo on this, but I challenge the New York Times. You missed Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and now you're sitting on your hands as you have a deeply corrupt governor. What are you doing? I thought you were the great, mighty New York Times. You might want to get to it.
Yeah. All right, moving on to other news. White House Counsel Don McGahn will no longer be the White House Counsel. He will be out of the White House in the fall. Apparently McGahn learned about this through Twitter when Trump announced it. He said through his tweet that White House Counsel Don McGahn will be leaving his position in the fall shortly after the confirmation, hopefully, of Judge Brett Kavanaugh to the United States Supreme Court. I have worked with Don for a very long time, and truly appreciate his service. So it was a nice complimentary, reaction or response to McGahn, but Trump has had some issues with McGahn as of late. Remember, there was a huge story involving Don McGahn testifying or cooperating with Robert Mueller, the special counsel in the Russia investigation. There was also a little bit of conflict with Trump on the issue of whether or not to pardon Paul Manafort. And they have been butting heads, so it appears that Trump made this decision, and who knows who he plans on replacing Don McGahn with.
No, but here's the fun part of the story. McGahn apparently found out through Twitter.
Yeah, I said that.
Yeah, and so he's like, oh, were you going to tell me that we had not coordinated at all on when I was going to leave and how we were going to announce it? Come on, McGahn, you're surprised? You know what a clown he is. You know what a buffoon he is. And then McGahn, we found out a couple of weeks ago in the New York Times, had talked to the prosecutor, special counsel, as Anna told you, and Trump apparently didn't know. So at the time, Trump played it off as, this is a quote from him, I allowed White House counsel Don McGahn and all other requested members of the White House staff to fully cooperate with the special counsel. Okay, all right, great. You allowed him to cooperate, so everything's hunky-dory, right? And then why did you turn around a couple of weeks later and be like, McGahn is leaving, okay? We had a good relationship, but he's gone, okay? McGahn's like, what happened?
So we had covered that story in detail when it originally broke, but just to remind you all of what happened, Trump had his own personal lawyers at the White House, and they were the ones who were encouraging McGahn to cooperate with Mueller. And it was because these attorneys who are no longer working with Trump genuinely believed that Trump was innocent, that he hadn't done anything with Russia. And so they're urging McGahn to cooperate. McGahn and Trump don't trust each other at this point. So McGahn was under the assumption that Trump was trying to screw him over and put him in a position where he would take the fall for this whole Russia investigation. So McGahn's like, okay, fine, I'm gonna cooperate, and I'm gonna cooperate fully. So he spoke to Mueller for 30 hours. But here's the thing, Trump and his attorneys are so incompetent that none of them asked for a briefing on what was discussed. They had no idea how long he had spoken to Mueller. It was a complete and utter disaster.
And my favorite part of that story was many months later, after he testified, and McGahn talked about what Trump did with Comey, how he had asked Sessions to, stop being the attorney general, or was looking to find out how he can get Sessions to stop being attorney general because he had recused himself and would not protect Donald Trump from investigation. And by the way, we found out also that McGahn threatened to resign at one point when Trump wanted to fire Mueller. So all that was what he testified to. And then McGahn sat around waiting for the rest of Trump's strategy. And he's like, wait, why isn't he throwing me under the bus? I thought he was gonna do that, and that's why he allowed me to testify. And then realized, oh, he has no strategy. And so the New York Times wrote that McGahn and his own personal lawyer, it dawned on them later that Trump had no plan and that he actually was not being adversarial to McGahn, he just didn't know what he was doing. McGahn's like, oh no. But at that point, he had already given the evidence to Mueller, which is a great break for us. And what did I tell you? He's gonna get caught, Trump is, because he's deeply stupid. And he couldn't manage his way out of a paper bag, including in this case. So, and here's my third favorite part of the story. And a White House insider that often deals with the, in fact, he's a former White House official, he's anonymous talking to The Hill, said the White House counsel's office, that's McGahn's office, is an island of competence and professionalism in an otherwise chaotic and amateurish West Wing. That sounds about right. And he said, of course, that
it'll be a tremendous loss if you have to wonder if this well-oiled machine
please.
starts to sputter a bit after he leaves.
Okay, there's no well-oiled machine, so you can tell the guy actually is very much a Republican and supportive, but he's like, yeah, it's mainly because of McGahn's competence. Otherwise, it's chaotic and amateurish.
McGahn has actually done a lot for Trump. He helped Trump confirm 60 federal judges. 60.
And what does he get in return? Well, you weren't super loyal to Donald Trump personally, and you didn't cover up his crimes. So one day you wake up and there's a tweet saying, oh, you're leaving, when you didn't even know you were leaving.
I think it's a good thing for McGahn.
Oh, yeah. No. If I'm McGahn, I'm thinking, oh, thanks God.
Yeah.
I thought it'd never come.
Yeah.
It's like the tweet from heaven.
All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we're gonna give you some updates on foreign policy stories. We're gonna talk to you about what's going on in Puerto Rico. Lots of news, you don't wanna miss it. Come right back.
We hope you're enjoying this free clip from the Young Turks. If you wanna get the whole show and more exclusive content while supporting independent media, become a member at tyt.com/join today. In the meantime, enjoy this free segment. All right, Casper, you win. We'll talk about your podcast. We were just talking about it during the break. Okay, if wherever you listen to podcasts, go to get the TYT network. I mean, obviously go to tyt.com/podcasts, okay? That's the easy way to get it. No filters among them, hashtag no filter.
No, we took the hashtag out. There was a lot of confusion. We're keeping it simple, no filter, 2 words, go.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is it 2 words? I always get confused, like, because anytime you do a hashtag or you do anything online, you have to scrunch the words out, which greatly frustrates me.
So the show's name, I love the hashtag no filter tag on Instagram pictures where you literally don't use a filter on the pictures. And I'm like, you know what? I'm no filter.
Because no, that's you, yeah.
Like sometimes on the pictures I do have a filter, but not here, not here. There's no filter here. And then also I wanted to do a show where I'm completely unfiltered.
I think we got that.
Yeah. But unfiltered in a number of different ways. Unfiltered in that I don't hold back in sharing my opinion, but it is well-researched stuff. And then more importantly, there's no one else there. It's just me.
Oh.
No filter.
Okay. In other words, okay, gets rid of this guy. Okay, so anyway, check it out, tyt.com/podcast. Also, We the People with Nina Turner, fantastic. And there's Bernie Sanders on there, Susan Sarandon. Check out all of her podcasts, and then one where we put them all together, all of our best guests in one. So please check out We the People with Nina Turner and No Filter and the Young Turks, all part of our podcasting network. You could also get it on our app, tyt.com/app. Okay, now let me read a couple of quick comments for you guys. Hittin' Dave, back on YouTube Super Chat. We talked a lot about him last night, and he said, spot on with my name last night. Tell Ben it's Indian, not Jewish. Longtime fan.
Ooh.
All right. And now that I know I'm pronouncing it right, Hittin' Dave is like the greatest name ever.
It's pretty good.
Yeah. Oh, you guys going out drinking with Hittin' Dave? Of course we are. Why do you think he's named Hittin' Dave?
His name sounds like it could be a bar, like a bar's name, like a
cool,
trendy
let's go
bar.
hang out at Hittin' Dave.
Yeah. There's Dave and Buster's, which is a fun adult arcade place.
Oh, you put them together, Hittin' Dave and Buster's?
Yes.
It's over. Okay, anyway. Mescure A writes in, TYT member here. I think you guys should list TYT sponsor services, promo codes on the website. I registered for NordVPN using the promo code. Hey, all right. Bless your heart. Thank you for making that observation. We write all these down and get to them 7 months later. But we do, and we appreciate it, and of course our sponsors appreciate it. By the way, nordvpn.com/DYT. Okay, a couple of tweets for you guys. Pat Trago writes in, come on, didn't Trump pay Florida Attorney General $25,000 from his trust to drop investigation against Trump University?
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. Pam Bondi.
That's right, and she's now running for Senate, he asked? Yes, that's right. Great point. P. McEnroe says, I wonder if that's Patrick. I think that Michael Schur is friends with Patrick McEnroe, so there's like a 7% chance that that's actually him. Anyway, the only non-corrupt thing about Andrew Cuomo is that Chris Cuomo is not allowed to cover him. Part of the reason I read that is because the other night on one of the shows, I made the mistake of saying Andrew Cuomo when I meant Chris Cuomo. Chris Cuomo was the one that again was saying about a progressive. Well, in fact, I'm sorry, that was last night. Andrew Gillum, he said, yeah, he's for Medicare for all, but how is he going to pay for that? Chris Cuomo, I kind of like the guy, but he says that every time. Drives me crazy. All right. And my favorite, Dangos writes in, looks like corruption is still the status quo. Mo. Come on. That's really good. All right, we got to go. What's next?
All right. Several months ago, Donald Trump met with Kim Jong-un in a summit meeting in order to discuss denuclearizing North Korea and possibly bettering relations between the United States and North Korea. But it turns out that several months later, after Trump had agreed to stop doing joint military exercises with South Korea because he considered them provocative, he has decided to continue doing those joint military exercises because North Korea hasn't actually denuclearized. North Korea hasn't actually done anything, which is what we predicted would happen. And so as a result, Defense Secretary Jim Mattis, during a press conference, addressed this and essentially said, yeah, that suspension lifted. Take a look.
As you know, we took the step to suspend several of the largest exercises as a good faith measure coming out of the Singapore summit. We have no plans at this time to suspend any more exercises. We will work very closely, as I said, with the Secretary of State, and what he needs done, we will certainly do to reinforce his effort. But at this time, there is no discussion about further suspensions.
So I want to also correct myself because I made one small error in the intro to the story. So North Korea did send back some remains of American soldiers that they had essentially kept. So that's one thing that they did. But they're still moving forward with their nuclear weapons development. There is documentation proving that. And so it was clear to me because Trump had a bargaining chip, and that bargaining chip included the joint military exercises. But all it took was one meeting where an individual said complimentary things to Trump, and he's immediately regurgitating North Korean propaganda talking points. And one of those talking points was that these joint military exercises were provocative. So Cenk, before you jump in, I just want to refresh everyone's memory about the propaganda tour that Trump went on immediately after meeting with Kim Jong-un.
Suggested, and I want to do, is we're going to stop the war games.
Flying to South Korea to practice and then drop bombs all over the place and then go back to Guam.
We are going to get out of the war games that cost so much money.
So under the circumstances that we're negotiating a very comprehensive, complete deal, I think it's inappropriate to be having war games.
And I'm doing something that I've wanted to do from the beginning. We stopped playing those war games that cost us a fortune.
The war games are very expensive. We pay for a big majority of them. We fly in bombers from Guam. I know a lot about airplanes. It's very expensive.
Because I think, number one, it's very provocative, and I want to do it, and I think they're very happy about it because it is so provocative.
And I think it's very provocative. It's a very provocative situation.
You know, I wanted to stop the war games. I thought they were very provocative, but I also think they're very expensive.
It really is something that I think they very much appreciated.
And I think it's very provocative, especially, George, since we're getting along.
Oops. So they then followed up and asked Jim Mattis, well, President Trump said over and over again that the war games were very provocative, and you're now doing that again. So are you trying to provoke North Korea? That's an excellent question. Because now normally, no, we're just doing military exercise like we've always done. But the president said it was provocative. So are you trying to provoke them? Then Mattis had to kind of backpedal and say, well, I mean, we're not turning them back on. They've never been turned off.
We're going to see how the negotiations go, and then we'll calculate the future, how we go forward. In the future, how we go forward.
Yeah, he can't answer it because the president's an idiot. And so he does, I don't blame Mattis. What's he supposed to do? Trump put him in an untenable situation. So now let's have fun. In the middle of those clips you saw, now I know a lot about planes. They're expensive. First of all, who says I know a lot about planes? Okay, I'm moving on.
And then follows it with they're expensive as if no one knows that. No one knows that.
No, but you know why he said it? Because remember, he had Trump planes. And as usual, went bankrupt.
Yeah.
He's like, I know casinos, they're very expensive. I know steaks, they're very expensive. And because you bankrupted every company you ever had. That's why you think they're expensive, you moron. So speaking of how stupid he is, I don't know if you guys have heard me say that before. So here are the things that he said about North Korea, other than the videos that we just showed you. There is no longer a nuclear threat from North Korea. Who makes a statement like that? When they hadn't done one single thing to denuclearize. All they had done was compliment your stupid, stupid, childish ass. So they went and they're like, oh, Mr. President, you're a very important person. He's like, good, there are no more nuclear weapons in North, but there is. At least they're trying to make them, and they didn't denuclearize at all. He also said, it will be total denuclearization, which is already starting to take place.
What?
Not remotely true.
Yep.
It was not starting to take place. And of course, there's not total denuclearization. And they said, well, these negotiations, what was the result? Correct answer is, hey, it was a good beginning. You should talk to your enemies, and that's how you get to peace. In which case, we would have been like, hey, Trump, nice work. Good start, okay? And we said that before he went, right? So we're on the record. Instead, he comes out and goes, tremendous success.
So, look.
Okay, but like you can say, hey, it's a good beginning, but if you say it's a tremendous success and they don't have nukes anymore, then they have no incentive to actually denuclearize because you already announced to the world that they did. They can just keep going, and then you look like an idiot.
Yeah, I mean, look, he bungled it in so many different ways, and that's what we were talking about on the show at the time of this summit. And people got on us. A lot of progressives got on us because they're like, oh, you want war, you don't want peace, this is a good thing. No, but this is a political issue, a foreign policy issue that's not black and white. It is complicated, and yes, it's a good thing to sit down with your enemies and have a conversation, a negotiation about how to move forward in order to accomplish a peaceful agreement. Trump is incapable of that. So when that summit took place, yeah, we criticized him because he was like, oh, here's my bargaining chip, I give you.
Okay.
I give you bargaining chip. No, but you hold on to the bargaining chip and make sure that you have verification, you have a timeline, you have some indication, some proof that they're actually gonna denuclearize. And then you talk about what you're gonna give them in return, including suspending the so-called war games. By the way, I don't really care about whether or not we do war games, but if it's a bargaining chip, then yes, let's use that to our advantage. He didn't do that. He gave everything away immediately, and North Korea did nothing. They continued developing nuclear weapons.
I will end on 3 goofy points.
Okay.
Okay, number 1, I would love to play poker with Donald Trump. Oh my God, Mr. Trump, your hair is so nice. It's glowing nice and orange. Fine, I have a Jack 10 unsuited.
I don't even know what that means, but yes.
Okay, that was easy. Okay, number 2. Now this is super random. I'll get back to Trump in a second. I love the names of these exercises. The one that's gonna happen, but these ones, they're like mediocre, they could be better. The one that's about to happen, because it's back on, is Fall Eagle. Anything with a bird sounds good.
Especially eagle.
Oh, anything with an eagle. Yeah, I don't even know what fall is, and it doesn't sound great, F-O-A-L,
yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
But it's got eagle in it, good enough, okay? You could be like Mighty Dove, and I'm like, yeah, let's do this. Yalla, let's go. The one that was canceled earlier, although now Mattis is having to say, well, nothing was canceled, but it was. It's back on even though it never went off. Anyway, the one that was canceled was Ulchi Freedom Guardian. I don't know what olchi is. Maybe it's a Korean word. I don't know,
Yeah.
but it doesn't matter. They could take that out. Okay, we don't speak Korean. Okay, I know they do. Anyway, Freedom Guardians of the Galaxy. Maybe slightly goofy. Yesterday in the postgame, after our gigantic long coverage of the elections, John and I discussed what a blue falcon is. Now, blue falcon sounds pretty cool.
But it's not.
In the postgame, but it's not. It turns out it's military slang for something that is very wrong, okay? If you want to find out what that is, you can just Google it in 5 seconds, or you could become a Young Turks member and get that fun postgame from yesterday, tyt.com/join. All right, and then what was the last thing I was going to tell you guys that was about goofy Donald Trump? Oh, yes, and then the last thing is, look, should you talk to your enemies? Just to double down on what Anna was saying. Of course, we've been through it 100 times. Now, the question is, what do you get, right? So, should you talk to Iran? Dick Cheney said no. Iran was ready to cooperate with us back right after the 9/11 attacks because they also hate Al-Qaeda. And then later, actually after we invaded Iraq, in a surprising move, this is a rare moment where the neoconservative movement had a chance at working. Iran did get a little spooked and was like, okay, maybe we talk to you about, some of the things you want. And Dick Cheney's like, we don't talk to evil.
So stupid.
So dumb. Okay, on the other hand, so Obama goes to talk to Iran. They get a good deal. We actually do denuclearize Iran. They just had energy programs. They didn't have weapons programs, but great, fantastic. Let's take away any potential for nuclear weapons. Now, if Trump had gone to Iran, we would have said, good, I'm glad he's going to Iran. But what if he came out of the negotiations and said, it's a tremendous success. We gave them San Antonio, but still, it's wonderful. You're like, I wanted you to talk to them. I didn't want you to give up a US city.
No, but
isn't that, how obvious is that? It depends on the goddamn deal. How obvious is it?
If the situation with North Korea wasn't enough evidence to prove that Trump is a horrible negotiator, just consider what he was really genuinely thinking about doing for Vladimir Putin after the Helsinki summit.
Oh.
Remember? Putin wanted to do the shakedown of US officials. And Trump was like, oh no, it sounds like a good deal. What?
So if you think that Trump is not corrupt, then you've got to think he's the worst negotiator ever. Because Putin's like, hey, why don't you hand over your former US ambassador for me to interrogate and a couple other people, and you might never see them again. But in return, I will let you talk to our agents, our spies, who of course will give you nothing in return.
Right.
And I will help you with your investigation of me. Oh, come on. Any rational person with just like an IQ of 49 or higher would go, wait, you're gonna help my investigation of you. And the way that you're gonna do that is I'm gonna give you all the documents in that investigation of you. You'd laugh the guy out of the room. Trump's like, that is a very good deal. I'm very interested in that deal. Iran would just have to be like, hey, Donald, you want a ham sandwich? We're Muslims, we're against ham, but I'll give you a ham sandwich, but throw in Seattle too. It's like, oh, deal. Like, oh, you guys will never believe this. I got a ham sandwich. I did. I gave up San Antonio and Seattle.
All right, let me sign the paperwork before you make me that sandwich, though.
Yeah. Turns out I didn't get it. Okay, but still, I'm thinking about getting a Nobel Peace Prize.
Disaster.
How's that coming along?
All right, let's move from one Trump failure to the next. Hurricane Maria. We have a new death toll in Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria. The official death toll was 64, and that was the previous official death toll. Everyone knew that that was not accurate. And luckily, there has now been an investigation into the number of people who have died, and the number is actually closer to 3,000. So officials said that 2,975 people died in Puerto Rico following Hurricane Maria last September. The revised death toll, as I had mentioned, is nearly 50 times the previous estimate of 64. So the numbers are different because of a number of different things. The initial number of 64 only counted the people who had died during the hurricane because of the storm. So if the building that they were in collapsed, or if they were hit by debris and died as a result of that. But a number of people died, thousands of people died after that because of all of the issues that they had to deal with in their infrastructure, the lack of electricity, the spread of diseases. Those counted, or this new number counted those who died in in the 6 months following the storm as a result of poor health care and a lack of electricity and clean water. Repeated power cuts also led to an increased number of deaths from diabetes and sepsis. Now, they are asking the US government, Congress specifically, for additional funding, $139 billion in recovery funds. With the GOP in charge, I question whether or not that's even possible, but that is what they're asking for. And I think, as a US territory, Puerto Rico needs more help. They certainly did not get the same amount of help that Texas and Florida did after they were hit with hurricanes in the same time period. But yeah, this is insane. We have video of Trump patting himself on the back because he thought that his response to Hurricane Maria was excellent. But before we
hold on. Let me give you just a little bit of context before we go to Trump. So this is now the second deadliest storm in US history, at least over a century. Now it's a little apples and oranges because the deadliest storm was in Galveston, Texas in the year 1900. And at least 8,000 people died, in that case within hours. They obviously didn't have great warning systems at the time, but the storm hits out of nowhere, kills all those people. Now, the number is probably way higher because just like in this case, I'm sure a lot of people died afterwards in the devastation. But in recent storms, they count the devastation as part of the death toll. But that's actually, in a sense, more tragic because a storm hits out of nowhere and a tree falls on you and you die. It's hard to prevent that. The early warning system, et cetera, and a good way to evacuate people is super important. So you can prevent a lot of that, but it's harder. But in terms of making sure the electricity doesn't get cut off so that a patient in a hospital doesn't die, that is really preventable. But we chose not to prevent it.
Exactly.
And that makes this death toll even more tragic.
Right, and look, this hurricane hit in September of last year. Mind you, at this time, the Trump administration was really pushing for those tax cuts for the wealthy. And when it came to the response efforts or the relief efforts in Puerto Rico, Trump kept saying over and over again that it was expensive, that this was really hurting the US budget. We're talking about a US territory. If you're really concerned about the US budget, and if you're worried about not having enough revenue or enough money in the federal government to help Americans, well then maybe don't cut taxes. Anyway, I want to go to this video because again, Trump really congratulated himself because he thought that his response to Hurricane Maria was excellent.
Mick Mulvaney is here right there, and Mick is in charge of a thing called budget. And I know you appreciate our support because our country's really gone all out to help. And it's not only dangerous, it's expensive. I hate to tell you, Puerto Rico, but you've thrown our budget a little out of whack because we've spent a lot of money on Puerto Rico, and that's fine. We've saved a lot of lives. You can be very proud of all of your people, all of our people working together. 16 versus literally thousands of people. You can be very proud. Everybody around this table and everybody watching can really be very proud of what's taken place in Puerto Rico. If you look at a real catastrophe like Katrina, and you look at the tremendous hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that died, and you look at what happened here with really a storm that was just totally overpowering.
So after every Trump video, you have to unpack it because he packs so much stupid into such a short period of time. So let's break down all the horrible things that he said. First of all, just comically in the beginning, there's Mick Mulvaney in charge of a thing called a budget. Okay, all right, we're moving on.
No, he didn't even say the budget. He said in charge of budget. Like it was
in charge of a thing called budget.
Called budget, yeah.
Okay, what is that? What language is that? Okay, all right, but much worse. You should be really proud. Only 16 died, and Hurricane Katrina, a real catastrophe, killed more. It's not a game. It's not ratings for a reality show. And now, I guess what they're supposed to be not proud. Because it turns out less people died in Hurricane Katrina than died in this storm.
Right.
The person who should not be proud is you, because instead of going to help those people, and if you had helped them at that point, when you were at that press conference, thousands of people might not have died because of the consequence of that storm. Instead, you were saying, as you saw in that clip, well, you know, you guys are really hurting our budget. Who's you guys? They're part of the United States of America. And look at his frame of thinking.
Right.
Houston and Florida should be helped, but Puerto Rico, you're hurting our budget.
So I want to elaborate a little more on you know, the Hurricane Katrina versus Hurricane Maria rhetoric that you heard there. So he said Hurricane Katrina was a disaster, hundreds upon hundreds died. Actually, more than hundreds died, okay? It was about half of the number of people who died in Hurricane Maria, but it was in the thousands. So it was over 1,000, about 1,500, I believe.
Yeah, no, it's 1,833.
Oh, wow, close to 2,000 people. But the point that I'm bringing up is that was a horrible, horrible moment for the Bush administration. It put a huge stain on the Bush administration and will never be forgotten. And it was one of those horrible moments in American history where Kanye West came forward and said, George Bush doesn't care about black people, right? That was a famous line that Kanye West had made. Now, more people have died in Hurricane Maria's aftermath, but remember, just this is a side note, Kanye West loved Donald Trump, no problem there. But Trump's sitting there talking about how he's better, like he's more successful. His response was better. No, it wasn't. It was actually worse. More people died in the aftermath of Hurricane Maria versus Hurricane Katrina. And you're right, it's not a competition, but he's the one who's decided to make it a competition, when in reality, his efforts should be focused on helping people. Again, American citizens who desperately need your help.
Yeah, so in terms of the comparing the two presidents, right? So Bush was really late in responding. It seemed like he didn't care. He had the famous picture of him just looking at the city, but from above and not being on the ground, et cetera. And that was really terrible. But we had no idea what was in store for us, which was Storm Trump. And even like Bush used to say, I got my budget man. And we thought that was just the dumbest thing ever to call your budget director. Now, it always gets worse. It's like the Republican presidents are photocopies of each other. It just keeps degrading over time.
Yeah.
So now Trump goes in and goes, Mulvaney in charge of a thing called budget, right? And now Maria, worse than Katrina, Trump more indifferent, and then goes, throws paper towels at people, and then comes back and says, they were beautiful, soft towels. He said that. Like, what? Why are you? What? They were normal paper towels. What is wrong with you? So, as always with these guys, when you think it can't get worse, it does.
Yeah. I want to end with a quick video of the mayor of San Juan. Now, as you know, she has been very vocal, a vocal opponent of Trump. But I do want you to hear what she had to say after the numbers were updated and it was revealed that nearly 3,000 Puerto Ricans died in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. So let's skip ahead to video 5.
The Trump administration killed the Puerto Rican with neglect. The Trump administration led us to believe that they were helping when they weren't really up to par. Shame on President Trump. Shame on President Trump for not even once, not even yesterday, just saying, look, I grieve with the people of Puerto Rico. Shame on him. First of all, he doesn't even take a time of the day to say, look, I'm sorry that you people are grieving. I'm sorry that your people died. And secondly, what is there to be proud of? 2,975 dead? Is that what he's proud of? Is he proud of that maybe this is over now and he thinks it's going to go away? Well, it's not going to go away. We're going to remember this forever. This will be a stain in his presidency for as long as he lives, because rather than coming here to support us, he came here to throw paper towels at us.
And if you don't, that's a great line, and it's unfortunately true. If you don't remember that famous video, let's go to video 4 and remind you of what he did. And you could tell in that flippant attitude he had in the press conference, he carried that over. He's supposed to be helping the victims. Maybe some of their family members died. They're all devastated. They've lost everything. They came for just to get paper towels. That's how desperate a situation they're in. And here's how Trump handled it. He lacks any ability to empathize with people.
Yep.
And that's a defining trait of sociopaths. No empathy at all. Okay, quick break. Now, when we come back, we have not yet gotten to the two best stories, but they are coming up. So one is immediate nuclear racism from the Republican in the Florida governor's race against Andrew Gillum, the progressive champion that won last night. And boy, I've got a lot to say about that. And then Donald Trump, we told you yesterday about his meeting with evangelical leaders. He actually said,
worse.
Yeah, worse. I mean, it's a murderer's row of horrific things to say. He talked about the violence. We talked about that yesterday a little bit on in the show. But there are three devolving quotes there that I don't want you to miss. And the last one, actually, for the first time, convinced me. No, he might actually. I've always thought he was painfully dumb, but his mind might actually be deteriorating worse than we realized. Because I want you to listen to it and see if you could decipher what in the world he means. It's a little frightening, actually. So, and of course, a lot of you get the whole show. Some of you watch and listen in different places, and you don't get all of it. It's a 2-hour show, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on tyt.com/live. And if you want to get the whole show anytime you want, become a member and join us at tyt.com/join. All right, we'll be right back and talk about those stories.